The vote that damned us, all the vote, was unanimous. 847 species, representing 12,000 worlds, raised their appendages in perfect agreement. Not a single voice of dissent echoed through the vast crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council. The resolution was simple, clinical, and devastating. Earth was to be reclassified as a service species, its population redistributed across the galaxy for manual labor and technical support. Marcus Chen stood in the observation deck, his hands pressed against the cold, transpersonal barrier. He watched as the alien delegates celebrated their decision with what could only be described as relief. The humans in the gallery sat in stunned silence. They had come here believing in diplomacy, in the possibility of joining the galactic community as equals. Instead, they witnessed their entire species being sold into bondage with the efficiency of a corporate merger. Ambassador Crix of the Velian Republic approached the human delegation with what passed for sympathy among his kind. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture that supposedly conveyed regret. Please understand, humans. This decision ensures galactic stability. Your species shows remarkable aptitude for complex tasks, and your emotional resilience makes you ideal for challenging work environments. This is not punishment, it is ... optimization. Marcus felt his jaw clench. Optimization? They had just voted to enslave 7 billion people and called it optimization. The transportation began within 48 hours. Massive carrier ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like mechanical locusts. They came not with weapons or threats, but with contracts and processing centers. The aliens had learned from their own histories that willing compliance was more efficient than violent resistance. They offered incentives for voluntary relocation, family unit preservation for those who cooperated, and educational opportunities for children. Marcus watched his wife Alina disappear into the crowds, boarding a Zenthari vessel bound for the Kepler Mining Consortium. Their daughter, Amy, only 8 years old, had been selected for the Educational Integration Program on Vega Prime. The alien processing officer assured him it was an honor. Elite human children would receive the finest education in the galaxy, preparing them for advanced service positions. Marcus himself was assigned to Technical Support Division, Gamma Sector. His engineering background made him valuable for maintaining the vast industrial complexes that powered galactic civilization. As the transport ship lifted off from Earth's surface, he pressed his face to the small porthole and watched his home planet shrink to a pale blue dot. The last thing he saw was the construction crews already beginning to dismantle the major cities. Earth was being converted into an agricultural world, optimized for food production to support the growing human workforce scattered across the stars. The work camps were not the brutal hellscapes of ancient human history. They were clean, efficient, and thoroughly patrician. Marcus found himself on Kepler 438b, a tidally locked world where the dayside housed massive manufacturing complexes. The aliens had learned that broken spirits were less productive than hopeful ones, so they maintained the illusion of dignity. Humans received adequate nutrition, medical care, and even limited recreational time. They were allowed to maintain relationships, start families, and practice their cultures within designated areas, but they were still slaves. Marcus worked 14-hour shifts maintaining atmospheric processes that terraformed dead worlds for alien colonization. The work was complex, requiring the kind of creative problem-solving that humans excelled at. The Zenthari supervisors praised his efficiency and even offered him additional privileges. Better quarters, access to the entertainment complex, the possibility of seeing his family again if he maintained his productivity levels. It took Marcus 3 months to realize the true genius of the system. The aliens had not simply enslaved humanity, they had made slavery seem reasonable, even preferable to the chaos and conflict that had defined human civilization. Here, there was no war, no poverty, no uncertainty. Every human had a purpose, a place, and a guarantee of survival. But Marcus remembered something the aliens had overlooked. Humans were not just good at following orders and solving technical problems. They were exceptionally good at learning. During his AFAOs, Marcus began studying the alien technology he worked with every day. Not just how to maintain it, but how it functioned, what made it vulnerable, and how it could be improved. He was not alone in this curiosity. Throughout the facility, other humans were doing the same thing. Dr. Sarah Voss, a former geneticist from Berlin, had been assigned to biological waste processing. She spent her free time analyzing alien tissue samples, learning about their physiology and biochemistry. Captain Jake Morrison, once of the US Air Force, worked in transport logistics but paid careful attention to security protocols and patrol patterns. The aliens expected intellectual curiosity from humans. It was one of the traits that made them valuable. What they did not expect was coordination. The first secret communications network began in the laundry facilities. Humans from different work shifts would leave coded messages in clothing pockets, sharing information about alien weaknesses, security gaps, and technical vulnerabilities. The system expanded rapidly. Within 6 months, humans across the entire facility were sharing intelligence about everything from guard rotations to the chemical composition of alien sedatives. Zara al-Rashid, a former telecommunications engineer from Cairo, discovered that the alien communication systems used quantum entanglement for instantaneous data transmission across galactic distances. More importantly, she learned that these systems were not encrypted against intrusion by supposedly primitive human technology. Within weeks, she had established contact with human slaves on 17 different worlds. The revelation was staggering. Humans were not just scattered across a few mining colonies or manufacturing centers. They were everywhere. On every major world, in every industrial complex, maintaining every critical system that kept galactic civilization functioning. The aliens had become completely dependent on human labor and ingenuity. Marcus received his first transmission from Earth during his 9th month of captivity. The message was brief and encoded in a maintenance report for atmospheric processor number 7. The soil remembers, it read, seeds planted deep, waiting for spring. Earth had not been abandoned, hidden beneath the agricultural facilities, in deep ocean trenches and abandoned mine shafts. Human engineers and scientists were working, building, planning. The aliens believed they had neutralized humanity's military capacity by relocating the population and dismantling the infrastructure. They had forgotten that human military capacity was not based on weapons or facilities, but on the human mind. The sabotage began small. Equipment failures that seemed random but followed careful patterns. Atmospheric processes that developed mysterious inefficiencies requiring more frequent maintenance. Communication arrays that suffered intermittent disruptions during critical transmissions. Transport schedules that somehow became confused, leading to delays and confusion. The aliens noticed, of course, but they attributed the problems to the inherent complexity of running a galactic civilization. They increased human work quotas to compensate for the inefficiencies and praised their slaves for working so diligently to solve these. technical challenges, Marcus smiled as he filed his daily maintenance report. The report contained detailed schematics of the facility's power grid, encoded in routine diagnostic data. By tonight, every human on 17 worlds would know exactly how to bring down the entire Kepler industrial complex in less than 4 minutes. The aliens had made one critical error in their calculation. They had assumed that humans would accept their situation because it was objectively better than the chaos and suffering of independent human civilization. They offered security, purpose, and survival in exchange for freedom. They had forgotten that humans did not want security. They wanted justice. As Marcus lay in his assigned sleeping quarters, staring at the artificial stars projected on the ceiling, he thought about his daughter Amy. She would be 9 years old now, learning to speak Velian and studying Galactic. History in a school designed to make her grateful for the wisdom of alien civilization. The aliens would teach her that humanity's integration into galactic society was a gift, a chance to transcend their primitive origins and contribute to something greater than themselves. They would not teach her that her father was learning to build weapons from atmospheric processing equipment. They would not tell her that her mother was memorizing the biochemical vulnerabilities of every alien species in the Zenthari fleet. They would not explain that across 800 worlds, 7 billion humans were preparing to remind the galaxy why evolution had made them the apex predators of Earth. The spring was coming, and when it arrived, the galaxy would learn the difference between service and slavery, between gratitude and vengeance, between optimization and extinction. Marcus closed his eyes and dreamed of the day when his daughter would learn the true history of humanity's place in the stars, not as servants or slaves, but as the species that had looked at an entire galaxy arrayed against them and decided that the odds were about even. Asterisk. The day empires burned the signal came at 0800 Galactic Standard Time, transmitted simultaneously across 200 star systems through the quantum communication network that the aliens had so helpfully provided. It was a simple message, hidden in routine maintenance requests and shift schedules. 3 words that would reshape the galaxy forever. Spring has arrived. Marcus Chen stood in the atmospheric processing facility on Kepler 438b, his hands steady as he input the final sequence into the main control console. Around him, his human colleagues moved with quiet precision, their faces calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to unleash. They had rehearsed this moment in secret for months, using their supposed intellectual limitations to mask preparations that would have impressed the greatest military strategists in galactic history. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. The aliens had scattered humanity across the galaxy to prevent organized resistance, but in doing so, they had placed humans in control of every critical system that kept their civilization functioning. Atmospheric processors, power grids, communication networks, transport systems, waste management, food production, medical facilities, everything that sustained 12,000 worlds now depended on human expertise. The aliens had optimized themselves out of the ability to survive without their slaves. Dr. Sarah Voss initiated the first phase from her position in the Biological Waste Processing Center. The facility handled organic waste from 17 worlds, including the Zenthari home system. What the aliens did not know was that Sarah had spent the last year developing a targeted pathogen that would attack the specific neural chemistry of Zenthari physiology. The waste processing system would distribute the pathogen through the water supply of every Zenthari world within 48 hours. Captain Jake Morrison, triggered the second phase from the Transport Coordination Center. Every cargo ship, passenger, vessel, and military transport in the sector received new routing instructions that would send them careening into asteroid fields, gas giants, or the crushing gravity wells of neutron stars. The Zenthari fleet, which had seemed so mighty when it arrived at Earth, would be scattered and destroyed before their commanders even realized they were under attack. Zahra al-Rashid activated the third phase from the communication center, sending cascading viruses through the quantum network that would overload every alien communication system in the galaxy. In the span of minutes, the vast coordination apparatus that managed galactic civilization would collapse into chaos and silence. But Marcus had reserved the most satisfying task for himself. As the atmospheric processes shut down across the Kepler system, he opened a communication channel to the administrative complex where the Zenthari supervisors maintained their luxurious offices. He wanted them to understand what was happening before they died. "Attention, Zenthari administrators," Marcus spoke calmly into the communicator. "This is Marcus Chen, registration number 7742 Delta Prime, assigned to Technical Support Division. I am informing you that human slaves have just taken control of all critical systems in this sector. Your atmospheric processes are shutting down. Your power grid is collapsing. Your ships are being redirected into stellar phenomena that will ensure their complete destruction." The response came immediately, a mixture of panic and outrage from Administrator Kelkstar. "This is impossible. Humans lack the technical knowledge to coordinate such an assault. Cease this malfunction immediately and return to your assigned duties." Marcus smiled. Even now, facing extinction, the aliens could not accept that they had underestimated their slaves. "Administrator, we have been maintaining your systems for 18 months. We know them better than you do. We have improved them, modified them, and prepared them for this moment. Every human in this facility has been working toward this day. We are not malfunctioning. We are executing." The atmospheric processes reached critical failure. Warning alarms began to sound throughout the facility as the artificial atmosphere that sustained alien life began to break down. The Zenthari had exactly 47 minutes before the air became unbreathable. "You cannot do this." Kelkstar's voice cracked with desperation. "This action will result in the deaths of thousands of innocents. We can negotiate. We can find a solution that benefits both species. Negotiate." Marcus's voice remained steady, but there was ice in his words. "You had your chance to negotiate when you decided to vote on our enslavement. 847 species agreed that humanity deserved bondage. Not one voice spoke in our defense. This is not negotiation, Administrator. This is consequences. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on every world where humans had been placed. The efficiency was terrifying. Systems that had taken centuries to build were collapsing in minutes. The aliens who had prided themselves on their technological superiority discovered that their technology was useless without the humans who understood it. On Vega Prime, where human children had been sent for educational integration, the youngsters revealed that their lessons had not been limited to alien languages and galactic history. They had also learned to hack alien computer systems, disable security protocols, and coordinate with resistant cells across the planet. The educational facility found itself under lockdown as 8-year-old Amy Chen and her classmates systematically shut down every system keeping their alien teachers alive. The Velian Republic, which had presented itself as the most reasonable and diplomatic of the alien species, discovered that their carefully maintained image of benevolence meant nothing when their cities began losing power and water. Ambassador Crix, who had spoken so eloquently about optimization and galactic stability, found himself trapped in his embassy as human. Maintenance workers methodically destroyed the life support systems, but the most devastating blow came from Earth itself. The aliens had believed they had neutralized humanity's homeworld by converting it into an agricultural facility. They had not realized that the farming equipment concealed the most sophisticated weapons manufacturing operation in galactic history. Captain Morrison received confirmation of Earth's contribution to the uprising when massive ships began emerging from what the aliens had thought were grain silos and irrigation systems. These were not the sleek, elegant vessels that characterized alien technology. They were brutal, functional weapons of war, built from the wreckage of alien ships and powered by fusion reactors that human engineers had developed in underground laboratories. The Earth fleet had been hiding in plain sight for over a year, disguised as agricultural infrastructure. When the uprising began, 200 ships lifted off from Earth's surface and began hunting down every alien vessel in the Sol system. The aliens had removed humanity's traditional military, but they had forgotten that humans were remarkably good at improvising new forms of warfare. Elder Vector, the Xanthari counselor who had proposed the original resolution to enslave humanity, found himself in the ironic position of trying to negotiate with the species he had condemned to bondage. His flagship was surrounded by human vessels that had seemingly appeared from nowhere, their crude but effective weapons trained on his ship's critical systems. Humans, Dektar's voice carried across the communication channel with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. Your species has demonstrated remarkable capability. Perhaps we were hasty in our assessment of your status. The Galactic Council would be willing to discuss revised terms for human integration into galactic society. Marcus, now coordinating the uprising from a captured Xanthari command vessel, responded with the cold precision of someone who had spent 18 months planning this moment. Elder Vector, the time for discussion ended when you cast your vote. Every species in the galaxy agreed that humans were suitable only for slavery. Today, you learn the difference between slaves and soldiers. The psychological warfare was as effective as the physical destruction. The aliens had built their entire understanding of humanity on the assumption that humans were emotional, primitive, and prone to chaotic behavior. The coordinated precision of the uprising shattered these assumptions. Humans were not acting out of rage or desperation. They were executing a plan that demonstrated strategic thinking beyond anything the aliens had imagined possible. Within 6 hours of the initial signal, 43 alien species had attempted to surrender. They offered to release all human slaves, provide reparations, and even grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council. The responses were uniform across all sectors. Humanity was no longer interested in joining galactic civilization. They were interested in replacing it. Dr. Voss's pathogen had reached the Xanthari homeworlds, causing systemic failures in their government and military command structure. Captain Morrison's transport disruption had scattered alien fleets across the galaxy, leaving them isolated and vulnerable. Zara's communication viruses had made it impossible for alien species to coordinate any effective response. Asterisk. But the most devastating weapon was the one the aliens had given humanity themselves. For 18 months, humans had been learning, studying, and understanding every aspect of alien technology and society. They knew which species were dependent on artificial atmospheric systems, which civilizations relied on specific trade routes, and which governments would collapse if their communication networks failed. The aliens had created the perfect intelligence network by enslaving the most adaptable species in the galaxy. By the end of the first day, 12 alien governments had fallen. 3 entire species had evacuated their home worlds rather than face human retaliation. The Galactic Council had dissolved as member species fled in terror or attempted to negotiate separate peace agreements with human commanders. Marcus stood on the bridge of his captured command ship, watching as human fleets emerged from hiding places throughout the galaxy. They had been there all along, he realized. In asteroid belts, in the debris fields of ancient battles, in the dark spaces between stars. Humanity had never stopped building, never stopped preparing, never stopped planning for this moment. The aliens had made one final, fatal error. They had assumed that because humans had not resisted their initial enslavement, they were incapable of meaningful resistance. They had mistaken patience for weakness, preparation for acceptance, and strategy for submission. As reports came in from across the galaxy, Marcus felt a grim satisfaction. The species that had voted so unanimously for human slavery were learning what humans had always known. Freedom was not something that could be granted or taken away by committee vote. It was something that had to be earned, defended, and when necessary, paid for in blood. The galaxy had optimized itself around human labor and human ingenuity. Now it would learn what happened when humans decided to optimize the galaxy around human priorities instead. The age of alien dominance was over. The age of human expansion had begun. And in a small classroom on a distant world, Amy Chen smiled as she watched the alien teachers, who had promised to civilize her, discover that she had been learning lessons they never intended to teach. Lessons about power, about justice, and about the price of underestimating the species that had climbed from the primordial ooze to the stars through nothing but determination, ingenuity, and the absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible. The spring had indeed arrived, and with it came the harvest that the galaxy had sown when it decided that humanity's only value was as slaves. They had been wrong about that. They had been wrong about everything. Asterisk.